How good was Michael Jordan actually? Appreciate you guys locking in with us today. We're just gonna go ahead and jump into it. We're not gonna give you guys a long intro. Like and subscribe. Let's jump into it. Let's get it.
Michael Jordan scored 50 points or more in the playoffs 8 times, more than Kobe, KD, LeBron, and Wilt combined. Jordan also had the most 40-point playoff games, more than Kareem, AI, Steph, and D-Wade put together. In fact, MJ is the only player in NBA history who had more 40-point career games than games where he scored less than 20 points. Jordan's godlike aura, brutal trash talk, and physical dominance put fear in opponents' hearts. And while they had to get a good night's sleep before facing the Bulls, Jordan could drink and smoke cigars before the game and still drop 40. His airness made it look easy, and he proved it when the games were on the line.
Game on the line. Who would take the last shot?
Me.
28 times Jordan scored the game-winning shot, including 7 game winners in the playoffs. And MJ wasn't just a scorer. He had the most first-team all-defense selections ever with 9. He's the all-time blocks leader by a guard and has the most seasons with over 200 steals with 6. In 1989, when the Bulls lost their starting point guard, Coach Doug Collins made Jordan play the point, and he notched 10 triple-doubles in 11 games, averaging 30 points, 11 assists, and 9.5 rebounds per game. Between 1991 and 1996, MJ played 13 consecutive playoff series where he averaged more than 30 points per game, retiring with 6 rings, 5 MVPs, and a 6-0 record in the final. But despite his seemingly invincible legacy, Jordan did have some weaknesses. MJ led the NBA in field goal attempts 9 times during his 13 years in Chicago, and he was a bit of a ball hog, especially in his early career. Jordan also had some bad playoff games, and he certainly wasn't the most pleasant teammate. So, how good was Michael Jordan actually? And is he really the GOAT? To answer that, we'll start with his genetics.
Look, I'll just say this, guys, and I'll jump right back into it. If the only knock towards your game that they have is that you were a bit of a ball hog and you weren't the best teammate, then I'm just going to go out, throw it out there and say you did some things right. Like, because there wasn't any knock to your actual game except that you took more shots than other people and you were a bit of a ball hog because you were possibly the best person on the court at all times. At least that was how you felt and what other people thought. So, I mean, to be honest, if that's the only 2 knocks to his game, I mean, that's a pretty good situation. Let's jump back into it.
And God-given talent. Michael Jordan was supposed to be short. Nobody in his family was taller than 5'9", and as a high school sophomore, Michael was famously cut from his varsity basketball team because he was only 5'11".
It sounds sad, but it's true.
However, the Jordans were blessed with supreme athleticism. Just look at Michael's older brother Larry, who could dunk at 5'8". So, when an unexpected growth spurt pushed Michael to 6'6", he became unstoppable. By the end of his high school career, Jordan was averaging 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists. But despite his unreal speed and athleticism, young MJ was still an unpolished gem because he really only played 2 years of high school basketball. As a freshman at UNC, MJ averaged a modest 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. He was the 3rd leading scorer on the team behind James Worthy and Sam Perkins, and his fundamentals, ball handling, and confidence weren't yet at a super high level. But all that changed in the 1982 NCAA Finals, when Michael hit a game-winning shot against Patrick Ewing, winning the national championship.
18.
Big game winner.
North Carolina
made a name for himself.
1982 NCAA
In the championship
Jordan
game?
said this was the biggest turning point of his career, because after that, his confidence was through the roof.
That turned my name from Mike to Michael Jordan. It gave me the confidence that I needed to start to excel at the game of basketball.
In the next 2 seasons, Jordan continued his basketball education under Dean Smith and became a complete player. He averaged 20 points per game, was a consensus first-team All-American, and as a junior in 1984, he was named Collegiate Player of the Year. But based on his college career alone, it was hard to predict that Jordan would reach the pinnacle of the NBA. After all, many great players who came before Michael had far better college careers, including Kareem, Magic, Bird, Bill Walton, Bill Russell, Oscar Robertson, David Thompson, Pete Maravich, and a few others. Because of his relatively modest numbers in college, and because the 80s were the era of the big men, Jordan was selected 3rd in the 1984 NBA draft, behind centers Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie.
He's only 6'6".
Selected 3rd.
So how much can he really do?
I mean, his college numbers wasn't that nice, so it's understandable.
However,
and he wasn't
it took just 2 practices for the
big in
Bulls
that era.
coach to call the general manager and say, "You didn't mess up the draft this time."
For the first day in practice,
You can
my
see it,
mentality
though. You can
was
definitely see
whoever
he
is
had
the
it.
team leader on that team, I'm going after him. And I'm not going to do it with my voice because I had no voice. I have to do it with the way that I play.
When the season started, it took Jordan only 3 games to score over 30 and 9 games to eclipse 40. By the end of the first
Dang.
month, it was obvious that Jordan was supposed to be the first overall pick. While
He came
Olajuwon
into
looked
it
like a
rolling.
star, Jordan was more like a supernova because there was nobody in the league faster than him.
Oh
It
my
seemed
goodness,
almost
you can
unfair
see
how
how
he blew
fast he
past
is.
opponents with just a single step who had no answer for his drives to the basket. On top of his speed, Jordan was also the most athletic player in the NBA, with an unmatched vertical jump and hang time. When he drove to the cup, it looked like he was a fighter jet, and his quickness served as a runway
Unmatched
for his vertical
athleticism is
takeoff.
right.
When MJ raised up for a jump shot, it seemed like nobody was ever guarding him, because the laws of gravity didn't seem to apply to Michael. Defenders could jump at the same time, but as they would inevitably fall down, Jordan would continue to float in the air and shoot completely unbothered.
How's the transition been from college to the NBA?
Well, I think it's been pretty easy.
Thanks to his high-flying feats
said
and
pretty
insane dunks, Jordan quickly became the most popular player in the NBA. So it only made sense that in 1986, he got voted to the All-Star game, despite playing just 3 games up to that point due to an ankle injury. And that same year, in the playoffs,
Dang,
he
only
set a
playing 3
playoff
games,
scoring
still got
record with
voted?
63 points against Boston.
But it was an incredible playoff performance. I've never seen it before, and I had never seen it after. That wasn't Michael Jordan out there. It was God disguised as Michael Jordan.
As if MJ
He was
wasn't doing
definitely
enough
out there
already,
doing some
in
things. I'll give him
1987, MJ led the NBA in scoring with 37 points per game, which was and remains the 5th
37?
best scoring output ever, behind only Wilt's insane scoring feats of the early
insane.
1960s.
I just want the franchise and Chicago Bulls to be respected as a team. It's very hard for something like that to happen, but it's not impossible.
Meanwhile, Jordan was miserable.
definitely got him some
Despite
respect.
all the fame and individual accolades, he was always losing. In his first 3 seasons, MJ only won 1 playoff game, despite being the best player in the league. But after the Bulls GM
Okay.
Jerry Krause drafted
First
Horace
3
Grant
seasons
and
is tough.
Scottie Pippen, his life would change forever. In 1988, MJ averaged 35 points on 54% shooting, with 6 rebounds and 6 assists, winning his first career MVP. Because he also led the NBA
First
in steals
MVP
with
and got him some
3.2
teammates.
plus 1.6 blocks per game, Jordan won
And
the
led the
Defensive
NBA
Player of the
steals.
Year. And he is still one of only 5 players ever to win Defensive Player of the Year and MVP. And after the 1988 dunk contest against Dominique Wilkins, which is considered by many to be the best of all time, some people already started calling him the best player they have ever seen.
That's got to be a 50.
But none of that mattered, because the most
Insane
important thing
dunk
to
contest.
Jordan was winning. And now, with Pippen and Grant on the team, the Bulls had their first 50-win season since 1974. Chicago then finally advanced
They
in the
started
playoffs,
building a squad.
winning the first round over the
Yeah.
Cavaliers, with MJ averaging an insane 45 points per game. However, in the second round, a more experienced
45.
Pistons team defeated the Bulls pretty easily, 4 games to 1. It was proof that individual greatness doesn't translate to playoff wins, a lesson Jordan
Yeah,
had
you
yet
can't
to
beat the
learn.
whole team by
But
yourself.
that didn't make him any less entertaining to watch.
But
in the
averaging 45
1989
is still
season,
crazy.
Jordan hit his first legendary shot in the NBA, simply known as the shot.
A shot on Elo. Good! The Bulls win it! They win it! Set the Cleveland
The clutch
Cavaliers.
one.
In the second round, the Bulls got
The
past
one.
the Knicks, but they again fell victim to the Pistons, who bullied Jordan with their physicality. And in 1990, it was more of the same. MJ led the NBA in scoring and steals. He was super efficient, but the team couldn't get over the hump and get past the Detroit Pistons for a 3rd consecutive year. In his
They had
first
some
6 years in the
defense, boy,
league,
the Pistons.
MJ had won 5 playoff series and lost 6, with an overall playoff record of
Oh,
25
6?
wins and 29 losses. So after that 3rd loss to the
It started
Pistons,
off
the
pretty
media
rough.
started doubting Jordan, questioning his ability to play team basketball, and wondering if he was only concerned about himself and his numbers. And in a way, they were right. In the 80s, he was often trying to score out of double or even triple teams, ignoring his wide-open teammates. In 1989, he was a capable passer, averaging a career-high 8 dimes per game, but Jordan always looked to score first and pass second. And he wasn't like
He
Magic,
scored first, but he
Jokic,
could
or
definitely
Doncic,
pass.
who manipulate defenses with their eyes and fake defenders into wrong coverages. Jordan's passing was more reactive. He got rid of the ball only when he saw that somebody was wide open. And since Jordan was like a black hole that sucked all the defensive attention, when he did opt to pass, it was usually for an easy dunk. But despite MJ's ridiculous scoring numbers, the Bulls' offense
They
was
definitely
always
wasn't expecting
average
him
during
to
the
pass
80s,
it.
and they were actually at their best in 1986, when Mike missed 80% of the season due to an ankle injury. It wasn't until 1990, the arrival of Phil Jackson and the emergence of Scottie Pippen, that the Bulls' offense cracked the top 5 in the NBA. Pippen's passing and pushing the ball in the open court created lots of space for Jordan, who could finally trust someone else to make
Yeah,
plays
Pippen
for him
set him up.
consistently. But Pippen's value
Yeah,
was
they could
maybe
set each
even more
other up
pronounced
now.
on the defensive end. With an enormous wingspan, agility, and a motor to cover multiple players on one possession,
Yeah, that
Scottie was
defense,
just
boy.
what Michael was missing. Pip's presence allowed Michael to play free safety on defense, jump into passing lanes for steals, and he didn't need to waste his energy guarding the best opposing player, because Scottie usually did that. And after agonizing defeats against
That
the
changed
Pistons,
a lot.
MJ decided to bulk up, which was unprecedented at the time. Players didn't spend much time in the gym, and if you look at all the players in the 80s, they looked lean. But hardly anyone was super muscular. So when MJ returned for the 1991 season, he was still super quick, athletic, and could contort his body in the air like no one else. But this time around, he was also much stronger, which allowed him to absorb contact better and bully smaller players with his size.
Oh,
what
he
also
would hit
helped
them
Michael was the
weights.
arrival of
He got
coaches
even
Phil
stronger.
Jackson and Tex Winter, who
He was already
instituted the
strong.
triangle offense, which was based on cutting in open spaces and playmaking out of the post. If executed properly, the triangle was believed to be the most optimal offense to optimize spacing. MJ did
Now I'll say this, guys. He came back stronger, and he was already like physically like stronger than normal people and normal human beings, but just a little more physically capable. But coming back after lifting them weights and putting on a little more muscle, that made him even stronger to fight through all that contact, and it shows within his dunks, possibly in that latter half of his career, where after that point. But it shows in his dunks, because some of these dunks, when he goes through people, going through contact with 2-3 people, you can see that he was just much stronger. You can actually see the evolution, and he had to do that because of the rules of the NBA, because of the way the NBA was played at that time, and the bad boy Pistons was definitely beating him up. So I say he did that predominantly for them, like most of all for them. But for everyone else that's trying to adopt that strategy and just beat him up so he can't fight through the contact, now he can fight through any type of contact he wants. And that kind of evolved his game in a sense as a player. So let's jump back into it.
didn't have to bring up the ball all the time and force his shots. And he was receiving the ball closer to the basket, where he'd bully smaller defenders and dominate like never before. Even though Jordan
Scottie
was
definitely
phenomenal from the moment
elevated
he
his
stepped
game.
into the NBA,
Helped him
in
out a lot.
1991, he was at his best, and he won his second MVP award. The 91 Bulls had the best offense in the NBA, and they crushed the opposition in the Eastern Conference. They swept the Knicks, beat the 76ers in 5, and then finally got their revenge against the Pistons. This time, it wasn't even close, as Detroit was
Got
on the
them bad
decline
boy
after
Pistons.
3 straight NBA Finals trips, while the Bulls were ascending. MJ swept Isaiah and the Pistons, who famously left before the final buzzer of Game 4, refusing to shake the Bulls' hands.
We finally got over the hump of
This is some
losers
bad
mentality.
sports.
We were starting to become a winning franchise. And, you know, this guy was the limit.
But in the NBA Finals, another legend awaited.
Definitely started
Magic
taking
Johnson.
over.
And it seemed like the 5-time NBA champion still had the upper hand when the Lakers defeated the Bulls at home in Game 1. That is, until Phil Jackson made the adjustment to have Pippen guard Magic, which turned the series around. And in Game 2, Jordan dazzled the world with
Pippen
another
started turning
iconic
things
move,
around.
switching hands mid-air to score an acrobatic layup.
Killed him. Killed him with that. They had never seen
The
nothing
Bulls
like
won
this
the
before.
next
It's
4 games,
witchcraft.
and at last, the championship. Jordan's hunger for an NBA ring was finally satisfied. Throughout the playoffs,
Definitely couldn't have
MJ
did it without
averaged
Pippen.
31 points, 8.5 assists, 6.5 rebounds, 2.5 steals, and 1.5 blocks, shooting a career-high 56% from the
balling.
field.
Jordan is the most talented player in the NBA.
by far.
And the 1992 season was a continuation of peak form for Jordan and the Bulls. Another scoring title with super efficient shooting, first-team All-Defense, and another MVP for his airness. The Bulls once again had the best offense in the NBA and won a franchise record 67 games. Chicago reached the finals against the Trailblazers, and the media pushed the narrative that Clyde Drexler was better than Jordan, because Jordan is not a good outside shooter. So MJ responded by nailing 6 threes and 35 points in the first half of Game 1, which was a finals record for both threes and points and a half, in what will forever be remembered as the Shrug Game. And even though Portland tied the series at 2 apiece, the Bulls were just too good, and they won the series in 6, with MJ averaging 36 points in the finals. After the second finals and the Dream Team experience in Barcelona, Pippen and Jordan came into the 93 season with an empty tank. The Bulls weren't as dominant in the regular season. But even though he was tired, MJ still led the NBA in scoring, which was his 7th scoring title in a row. And he also led the league in steals. Chicago made it to a 3rd consecutive finals, where they faced league MVP Charles Barkley and the Phoenix Suns, the best team in the regular season. Barkley was also the best player on the Dream Team, and when he won the MVP, many people believed that he could be an even better player than Michael, which pissed off Jordan. But because of the Suns' inexperience and Barkley's nasty elbow injury, the Bulls won the first 2 games on the road, and it seemed like it would be smooth sailing to the next title. However, the Suns weren't going away that easily. They won games 3 and 5 in Chicago, and they could have won game 4 too, if it wasn't for Jordan.
That motherfucker would not let me win that game.
Who buried the Suns with 55 points, the second highest scoring game in NBA Finals history.
And Michael just outplayed me. That was probably the first time in my life that I felt like there was a better basketball player in the world than me, to be honest with you.
After 5 games, it was 3-2 for the Bulls, but the remaining 2 games were to be played in Arizona. In Game 6, the Suns had the lead throughout the 4th quarter, but Jordan kept the Bulls in the game, and everybody expected Jordan to take the final shot to tie the game. But MJ wasn't the same stubborn player as before, and he gave up the ball early to set up an open shot for John Paxson.
The Paxson shot. The Paxson shot. The big shot. The one he passed.
That was it. A 3-peat, and MJ's legacy was set. Jordan finished the 93 finals with averages of 41, 8, and 6 on 51% shooting and 40% from 3. And this wasn't even his best playoff series statistically. MJ was on the top of his game, and his basketball IQ, winning mentality, and physical dominance all synced in perfect harmony. Jordan showed his otherworldly ability to beat an opponent one-on-one, separate double teams, attack the rim, but also to find open teammates. If we compare the 1993 Jordan to his early NBA years, the growth was evident. When it was needed, he was pressing full court defensively. When nobody could score, he recognized it and carried the Bulls. And when he got doubled, he gave up the ball without trying to be a hero. In terms of basketball skills, Jordan was physically a much stronger player, who became a master of footwork and post-up game. When he reached the desired position with his back to the basket, he'd turn and stay in the air for what felt like an hour longer than his opponent, only to hit a patented turnaround jumper clean as a whistle. The memories of anyone doubting him were long forgotten. Everybody knew he was the best player alive, and many believed after that three-peat, he was already the best of all time. My love for this game is strong. I'm going to be here as long as my love is strong, Jordan told reporters after the finals in a champagne-soaked locker room. However, just 1 month later, his father was killed, and Jordan retired from basketball for a year and a half. The love for basketball was put on hold.
For a year and a half? I had him for 32 years, and he taught me a lot in 32 years. You know how many kids get that opportunity? Very few. In today's society, get the chance to spend that much time with their parents and get that type of influence.
18 months and a stint in minor league baseball later, and the itch for the game became too strong. So Jordan released arguably the most famous 2-word press release of all time.
It came in a 2-word statement which is now just begging to have a Nike campaign built around it. Quote unquote, "I'm back."
And it didn't take Jordan too much time to show that he was still the god of basketball. In just the 5th game after his return, he poured in 55 points against the Knicks in the infamous double nickel game. But overall, MJ struggled with his shot, shooting a career-low 41% from the field. And it turned out that playing baseball for a year and a half took a bite out of his greatness. even the best players need to practice. And in the second round of the playoffs against Orlando, things didn't go according to plan. Even though Michael averaged 31 points on 48% shooting, the Bulls weren't as strong inside. Horace Grant, who used to be their starting power forward, was now playing for Orlando. And together with a young Shaq, the Magic simply outmuscled the Bulls in the paint. Many people will say the Bulls lost in '95 because Jordan wasn't in peak form after his baseball hiatus. And there is some truth to that. But Jordan actually averaged his usual numbers. Really, basketball is just a team sport. And they lost because Orlando was much bigger and deeper than them. Thankfully, the Bulls management knew that too.
I mean, he
Last
couldn't
week,
do it
the
by
Bulls
himself.
announced the acquisition of a player many people consider
help, bro.
the most
Even the
controversial
best need help.
basketball star in the NBA.
They added Dennis Rodman to the team, the best rebounder of all time, and one of the fiercest defensive players ever.
I don't care. Whatever. What's up?
A year before, they also added
What's
Steve
up?
Kerr, the most accurate three-point shooter ever. And together with a defensive dog, Ron Harper, and Tony Kukoc, who was the most versatile power forward in the NBA, MJ had the best supporting cast in the league.
Now
In the
he has a
1996
supporting
season,
cast,
the Bulls
baby.
were so good that they became only the second team in NBA history to lead the NBA in offensive and defensive rating. And their plus 13.4 net rating is still the best ever. Their 72-10 record was the best of all
Offense
time.
and
And,
defense
of course,
leading
Jordan won
in
an
net rate.
MVP, averaging 36-4.
The team was
As for
complete.
the playoffs, there was no stopping the Bulls. Only the Sonics in the finals showed any kind of resistance. And Gary Payton was the first defender to have slowed down Michael. But he couldn't beat him. And Chicago won their fourth title, with Michael crying his guts out in the locker room because it was the first championship he won without his father.
I know it rocks.
He came back and got another title for his pops.
He's
That's
a voice of reason that always
insane.
drove and challenged me. That's the type of father I had.
Like a friend.
Yeah,
Competitive
like a friend.
nature to be able
And
to
when the
come back and
1997
do it
season
like that.
started, the Bulls continued to rule
Dang.
the NBA. With 4 Hall of Famers, the most accurate three-point shooter of all time, and other excellent role players, no team could match up with Chicago. Running the triangle like a well-oiled machine, the Bulls dominated the regular season with 69 wins, and getting to the finals seemed like a walk in the park, as they only lost 2 games in 3 playoff series. But in the finals,
Dang.
it wasn't that easy, because they played the formidable duo of Stockton and Malone and the Utah Jazz. This series would be remembered by the infamous flu game, where Jordan suffered from food poisoning and had a fever before the pivotal Game 5 when the series was tied.
Food
But Jordan
poisoning,
played through the
flu
illness
game.
and managed to squeeze every atom of strength to score 38 points,
This
and the
man
Bulls
still
won
came out of
90-88. In
Dang.
Game 6, Jordan trusted Steve Kerr with the final shot, and Kerr hit a jumper for the win in the final seconds.
Later in his career, man, he started passing it more, started being more trusted in his teammates, and
However,
That
when the
really helped him get more
1998
wins.
season started, the Bulls were running on fumes. Pippen had injury problems and disputes with management, and Rodman was more reckless than ever. But they still had Michael. Even though he wasn't as athletic as before and his efficiency decreased, Jordan was still capable of winning games by himself. The Bulls finished with
Still
62
gonna
wins
get it.
despite Pippen missing half
62
the
wins.
season. And that's why Jordan was named NBA MVP for the 5th time. In the playoffs, the Bulls survived
For
the
the
Indiana
5th
Pacers in the Eastern Finals, winning Game 7 by 5 points. And then, in the finals, Utah awaited again, hungrier than ever. In a tough defensive series where neither team scored 100 points, Jordan proved his clutch factor once again, hitting arguably the most famous shot in NBA history over Byron Russell.
Open. Chicago with the lead.
6
most
championships in 8
famous shot.
years,
No
with 6
cap.
awards for the Finals MVP, and Jordan achieved basketball immortality.
And if this is
What
the
a
final
run.
chapter, what
Dang.
a way to close the book.
After 1998, Jordan retired for the second time, which was the end of his prime, and we can sum up his career with the Bulls in 3 parts. The first part being between 1984 and 1990, when he was easily the most athletic player in the NBA, a
Super
scoring
athletic
machine
at that
beating
time.
players with speed and leaving defenders stuck in the mud. But basketball is a team sport, and Jordan didn't have enough quality teammates around him, and those who he did have, he didn't trust. The second part was the first three-peat, when he slowed down a bit and wasn't going 100 miles per hour on every possession. MJ was then physically stronger, he became a master of all facets of the game, improved his
Leveled his
shot,
game
and
up.
started trusting his teammates.
Level
And then
up.
came the second three-peat, where the Bulls had the deepest and most versatile team in the NBA. The Bulls with Pippen, rookie Kukoc, and Kerr won 55 games in the 1994 season, and they played without Jordan, Rodman, and Harper, who was maybe the most underrated teammate MJ ever had. When they all got together in 1996, it was game over for the league. But having good teammates is essential to winning in the NBA, especially when you're past your physical prime. Jordan lost a chunk of his quickness during the second three-peat, but that's like when a Ferrari loses 100 horsepower. It's still faster than almost anything else on the road. And that answers the question, how good was Michael Jordan actually? Even when he wasn't at his best, Jordan was still the best player in the league. If you divide his career into three parts, each part would suffice for a Hall of Fame career. In his first six seasons, Jordan didn't win a ring, but he was the most electrifying athlete the NBA had ever seen, with unreal stats and winning all possible accolades. The first three-peat was Jordan at his best, showcasing a level of basketball that's rare and few, if any, have touched. And with his second three-peat, the Bulls won 72, 69, and 62 games in the regular season, and capped it off with 3 championship rings, losing just 13 games in 12 playoff series from 1996 to 1998. The only season of his career where Jordan wasn't the best player in the league was probably just his rookie season. Jordan was the best player in the world for over a decade, something that can be said only of 3 other players, Wilt, Kareem, and LeBron. But while Kareem's individual and team accomplishments are similar to MJ's, Jabbar wasn't the best player on his team for 3 of his 6 championships, and he only has 2 Finals MVPs compared to Jordan's 6. Wilt's scoring numbers from the 60s were impossible to reach even for Jordan, but he only won 2 titles and was constantly losing to Bill Russell. And finally, there's LeBron, who might be the most complete basketball player ever, and due to his longevity, he is the statistical GOAT. But LeBron only has 4 titles and has lost 6 times in the finals, including the 2011 dud against the Mavs, where he played a catastrophic series that cost Miami the championship. And that's something that never happened to Jordan. And because of his decade of dominance, 6-0 record in the finals, with 6 Finals MVPs, and the biggest impact on NBA popularity worldwide, it's hard to say that Jordan wasn't the greatest player to ever touch a basketball. Speaking of Jordan, we've got another video about him and Pippen you simply can't miss.
Well, that's the end of the video, guys, and honestly, him and the Bulls had a great run. And even though he was possibly the greatest or the GOAT, you know, in some people's opinion and in most people's opinion, possibly the GOAT, he couldn't do it by himself either. He couldn't really get over that hump until they got those players that they got when they picked up Scottie, Kukoc, Steve Kerr, you know, and then they were at their best when they picked up other teammates like Ron Harper and Dennis Rodman. But once they got the team that they wanted and the right pieces around them, that's whenever the Bulls became a championship winning squad. And they could three-peat in the way that they did because the team played the way they played. Now, Jordan was great, and Jordan did his thing. He was a sensational player. Nobody could take that from him. But at the same time, no player can beat a 5 by themselves. And even if you're the best, the most athletic, the most blessed, you still need the help of the teammates. So this was a great story. He was actually very, very good, possibly the best of all time. But at the same time, no, he had a great squad. He had Scottie, and Dennis Rodman was possibly one of the best big men in the league at the time, and each of those pieces were needed to win. But as a GOAT, in his GOAT status, I'll definitely give him that. Like, definitely the year he won MVP, scoring champ, defensive player of the year, and the dunk contest. If I missed something, let me know. But the year he won all that, he was definitely the best player in the world, and he was the best player in the world for possibly 12 of his 13 seasons, like they say. I mean, there was an unmatched run, and even whenever it comes down to the finals, 6-0, I don't think anybody else has touched that or may never touch that, because it's hard to go. It's hard to get there. Some players play in the NBA, and some players never ever even touch the finals. So it's hard to get there. That's one thing, but to win every single time you get there and three-peat twice, yeah, that puts him on a different level of GOAT status, and I can't hate on that. Like, dude is definitely one of the best players ever. So if you guys have any other stories you want me to check out, we'll definitely be checking it out. This was a very good one. It gave some good insight and some very good stats. I'm a stats guy myself, so I appreciated all the stats. But if you guys want to see anything else, make sure you're dropping it down in the comments and let me know what we should be checking out next. But also subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to hundreds of thousands of subscribers, so please spaz out on that subscribe button at the bottom. Every subscriber counts, and if everybody that watched the video subscribe to the channel, we'd be at hundreds of thousands of subscribers ASAP. So join the family, let's do it. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna do great things. I'm gonna be in your face all year. And don't forget to like the video. Spaz out on that like button right there at the bottom. It probably lit up. If it didn't light up, you see it at the bottom. Spaz out on the like button. By liking the video, the way the YouTube algorithm works, YouTube will push the video out to more people, and you'll be directly helping me to grow. And I'd appreciate that. So if you made it all the way through the video, you're the real MVP. I hope you know what it is. Until next time, I'm out your day.